This is a massive scandal being completely ignored by the mainstream media. Breaking today, woke ITV News despicably puts Prince George's security under serious threat in a shocking new attack by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's propagandist allies Chris Shipp and Charlene White. So we're going to show you what has made Prince William and Catherine so mad, then get analysis from royal YouTube sensation according to Taz.
ITV's royal editor Chris Shipp appeared on a podcast this week and disclosed specific details about Prince George's security arrangements at school. He confirmed that George does not have a bodyguard in the classroom with him, that the security sits outside in royal vehicles, while the heir to the throne sits in lessons without immediate protection physically present. This information was shared without apparent hesitation in the context of a wider conversation about royal security and was heard by everyone who was listening. The specific harm of disclosing this kind of information deserves to be stated directly. Prince George is 12 years old. He is third in line to the throne. He attends school in a location that is known to the press and known to the public. He does not currently have a bodyguard physically in the room with him during lessons. This specific configuration of facts, heir to the throne, known location, no immediate physical protection in the classroom, is exactly the kind of information that security professionals work very hard to keep out of the public domain. Not because the threat to George is necessarily imminent, but because the public articulation of a security gap is an invitation to anyone who wishes to exploit it. The response from those who take royal security seriously has been unambiguous. This is a breach, not a hypothetical or theoretical breach.
Yeah, but I think...
I'm not sure he's in the class. They can sit in the car outside. I have been to the school previously, and you see what we would recognise as royal vehicles.
Yeah, and I think they are trying to give the children as normal an upbringing as possible.
Yeah.
Allowing them to be children, but also protecting them. And actually, to have all three children at Lambrook, George, Charlotte and Louis, it does mean that in terms of security, that makes it a little bit easier.
So in the school classroom, it's not like George, bodyguard, Billy.
No. If you've ever watched The Crown, you actually see the then young Prince Charles at Gordonston School. Yeah. He's got his bodyguard almost like tailing him in a sort of like brown Mac the whole time. I'm not sure that's quite how it is, but there will be security at the school.
He's so much credit school.
A practical breach of the kind of operational security that protects people's lives. And the irony, which is the word that barely covers it, is that ITV's Chris Shipp has been one of the most prominent advocates in the mainstream media for Harry's argument that he cannot receive adequate security in the United Kingdom. Shipp accompanied Harry to Ukraine. He has been sympathetic in his coverage of the security case. He has given significant airtime to the Sussex position that British state security is essential to their ability to visit the country. And then, on his own podcast, he broadcast the specific security gap in Prince George's school arrangements to anyone who was paying attention. The questions this raises about Shipp's judgment and about ITV's editorial oversight of content produced by its royal editor are serious ones. Whether the disclosure was deliberate, careless, or simply the product of the kind of relaxed podcast atmosphere where journalists sometimes say things they would not write, the effect is the same. The information is now public, and having been made public by ITV's own royal editor, the security arrangements for George at his school will need to be reviewed and potentially strengthened in ways that were not previously necessary. The practical consequence, as commentators have noted, is that George's school experience may now have to become more visibly protected in ways that make it harder for him to have the normal school life that his parents have been trying to provide. The protective intent behind keeping the bodyguard out of the classroom was to give George the chance to be a student rather than a security principal during his school day. That intent has now been compromised by the disclosure, and the compromise is not reversible.
Think about the consequences of that. As Meghan's mole said, that is now a target on George's back, because any potential terrorist now knows that the security is not sitting in class with him. And unfortunately, probably what's going to have to happen now as a result of this disgusting faux pas by Chris Shipp is they will have to sit in the classroom, which will make life very difficult for George to try and be normal. That was a complete breach on every level. And I think he knows it. Because this entire podcast actually was disgraceful. And it shows that there is a huge amount of disrespect coming from woke ITV as a result of their ties to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle specifically.
The information is out. Now let me turn to the Chicago story and the specific detail that has emerged to undercut the People magazine narrative significantly. When Meghan's solo trip to Chicago was briefed to people with the specific emphasis that she arrived early, sat in the pews with other families, had no special arrangements, used no separate entrance. The impression created was of a woman who moves through the world without security infrastructure, just like anyone else. The point being made, however implicitly, was that Harry's claim of needing state security in Britain is separate from Meghan's ability to move around America without security arrangements. Except she had a bodyguard with her. Specifically, by multiple accounts from people who identified him from photographs, her longtime security operative Dave Langham was present in the church. The same individual who has been with Harry's security detail since Harry was a teenager, present in the church during the First Communion. While People magazine was briefing that there were no special arrangements and that Meghan sat with everyone else in the pews,
I just want you to watch the face of Lizzie Robinson, who is the producer for woke ITV's Royal Show, which is a major flop, by the way. She's disgusted. She's disgusted in her colleagues. You can see it in her face, and she tries to stop the discussion, but they insist it goes on. Watch.
Are you laughing at the question?
Oh, golly.
Oh my God. Some people are so random. You guys are very, very random in terms of...
I can't wait for this one. Come on, what
Come
is
on
it?
then.
Like, how on earth do you meant to know the answer to this? But I'll ask it anyway.
Go on. If you can stop laughing. Do you want me to read it?
this specific contradiction between the brief narrative of zero security and the documented presence of a security operative in the church is not a minor inconsistency. It is a direct factual misrepresentation made to a major media outlet in the context of a story designed to achieve a specific effect. The effect was to make Meghan look normal and unprotected. The reality was that she had professional security with her, and the People magazine story, as briefed, did not acknowledge this reality. The implications for Harry's security case are compounded by this detail. If Meghan traveled to Chicago with a security operative, if the claim of no special arrangements was specifically untrue in the way that photographs appear to document, then the People briefing was designed to mislead on exactly the point that matters most for the legal case. The argument that the Sussexes cannot move around without significant security is undermined if Meghan is sitting in a church in Chicago with her bodyguard while simultaneously briefing that she had no special arrangements. The legal case rests on the claim that the security need is real and significant. The People story, if it had been accurate, would have undermined that case by demonstrating that Meghan can move through a high-crime American city without security. The actual picture, Meghan with security but briefed as without, is an attempt to have it both ways, and photographs of Dave Langham in the background of church photographs do not accommodate having it both ways. The godmother question that has emerged around the Chicago trip is also worth addressing. Multiple observers have raised the question of whether Meghan could be a Catholic godmother, given that she is not Catholic.
So, as for the shampoo, I'd imagine it was slightly more high-end.
Maybe.
I guess it.
Or like Selfridge's finest.
We're totally guessing. I mean, I have no idea, and nor should we know.
I imagine there's some
12-year-old
natural
child
products in
shouldn't
it.
know.
Maybe, what was it, the sort of sodium lauryl sulfate-free, maybe?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, just the good stuff. Or maybe they've moved on to soap bars because they're more sustainable.
Less plastic.
Exactly.
Good idea, actually.
I mean, there's random and there's random.
Okay, the only one who comes out of that mess with any credibility or humanity is that female producer called Lizzie, but actually she should have stormed off set. And I want to bring, according to Tash in now, because Tash, I am so disgusted. We'll come to that shampoo thing in a moment because it's disgusting but not as serious.
The Catholic Church's requirements for godparents include that they be practicing Catholics in good standing. Meghan's religious history: she was raised Protestant, was apparently baptized and confirmed in the Church of England before marrying Harry, would typically disqualify her from being a Catholic godparent under the Church's formal requirements. There are provisions for a Christian witness from another tradition to serve alongside a Catholic godparent, but the role of godmother in the Catholic sense is specifically defined. Whether the family in question observed these formal requirements, whether there is a distinction between the formal religious role and the social designation, or whether Meghan's religious affiliation has changed in ways that would make her eligible, all of these are questions that cannot be answered from the outside. What can be said is that the specific claim of being the godmother of a Catholic child is not as uncomplicated as the People briefing presented it, and that the broader pattern of claims around the Chicago trip, no security, just like everyone else in the pews with regular families, does not survive close examination of the available photographic evidence. The Met Gala question connects to the Chicago story in a way that has been noticed. Meghan was not at the Met Gala. She was apparently in Chicago for the weekend and back in Montecito by the time of the gala. The People briefing confirmed she was already home by the time the gala happened, so the Chicago trip was not the reason for missing the gala that was already established. But the briefing of the Chicago trip in the days surrounding the gala creates an implicit narrative. Meghan was doing something meaningful, was with real people who matter to her, was not missing the gala because she was not invited, but because she had more important things to do. This is the Sussex communications operation, doing what it always does, creating context around an embarrassing absence. The absence from the Met Gala, following the absence from the state visit events, following the absence from anything associated with King Charles's Washington and New York week, creates a picture of a couple who are increasingly outside the significant events of both the royal world and the American cultural world. The Chicago trip is an attempt to fill the frame with something positive during a week when the frame was otherwise occupied by the things they were missing.
I've been to the school, I've seen how it works, I've seen they've got some cars outside, but, Prince George doesn't have anyone in the classroom. He doesn't have a bodyguard in the classroom with him. And like you said, well, he's probably going to have to now. Well done, Chris Shipp. I mean, I do not understand the mentality behind any of that panel, of any of the clips that you have just shown. I do not understand how grown adults would be talking like that about children that are under a serious risk every single day of their lives. But for him to have done that, and there's so much, like you said, I mean, he's definitely pro Harry and Meghan. It could be just a way to get in a swipe because of Harry's, fighting for security for his family. But the way his children are growing up are very different to George, Charlotte and Louis, and Prince George is the heir to the throne.
Now, let me address the marriage tension reporting, because Boshoff's Daily Mail piece has added specific detail to what multiple sources have been describing for months about the dynamics within the Sussex relationship. Harry apparently does not want Meghan using the children in the commercial content. This is reported as an ongoing source of tension, not a one-time disagreement, but a sustained conflict between Harry's position and the operational requirements of the commercial machine that Meghan is running. The specific nature of this tension is worth dwelling on. Harry has staked enormous personal credibility on his position as a child protection advocate, specifically in the area of digital exposure and social media. He has met with the families of children who suffered serious harm from social media exposure. He has given speeches, he has funded research, he has lobbied governments. His public identity as a parent is significantly defined by this specific advocacy. And in his own home, his wife is using their children's names, faces, birth dates, and royal titles as commercial assets in the As Ever brand marketing, in the Instagram content, in the fashion platform commissions.
The dissonance between Harry's public position and the domestic reality is not abstract. It is documented in candle packaging and Instagram posts and People magazine briefings and fashion platform listings.
And the sources who describe it as a source of great tension in the marriage are describing something that is, in its emotional texture, very specific. Harry is publicly committed to a position.
Pick up on what you've said in regards to the security. You are absolutely correct, because look at what happened in North London here in the United Kingdom just the other week. a young teenage Islamist terrorist actually managed to invade a classroom at a North London school, shouting Allahu Akbar. Now, thank God in that case, no one was targeted, but George is clearly going to need protection in the classroom right now. And for William and Catherine, that will be utterly devastating given the lengths they go to protect their children. And again, Tash, I repeat, this is the guy who is constantly basically doing the business, the dirty business of Prince Harry.
He is privately unable to enforce that position in his own household. That is a specific kind of powerlessness that would wear on anyone, and it is particularly acute for someone who has made that specific commitment so publicly and so personally. The accumulation of these tensions, the commercial divergence, the divergent desires for their lives, the child content conflict, the financial pressures, the diminishing social circles, is what makes the marriage question the most significant and least addressed element of the Sussex story. Every public assessment of the Sussex situation treats the couple as a unit, what Harry and Meghan think, what Harry and Meghan want, what Harry and Meghan are doing. The reporting from multiple independent sources suggests that this unitary framing increasingly does not match reality. There are two people with diverging interests, diverging instincts, and diverging assessments of what the Sussex operation is for and who it serves. Whether those divergences are resolvable within the current structure of the relationship is the question that no one is yet willing to answer publicly. But it is the question that the accumulation of evidence keeps raising. And the specific tension around child content, Harry's public advocacy position in direct conflict with Meghan's commercial strategy, is perhaps the clearest single expression of a divergence that runs much deeper than any individual disagreement about Instagram posts. Now let me address what the week has revealed about the overall state of the Sussex social and commercial position, because the picture is more comprehensive this week than it has been in some time. The Bashoff reporting on Wintour, Sanchez, Avant, and the Kardashians. The Chicago trip with its undisclosed security and its godmother complications. The People magazine cover that apparently underperformed commercially. The Met Gala absence. The state visit events absence.
Increase the security risk on by stupid things like that as well. It's all with the other children in George's class. If a maniac gets in there, yeah, okay, of course, George would be the target, but the other children would be collateral. I mean, it's honestly disgusting that they thought that was appropriate. And Chris Tripp, yeah, well, I've been there. I've seen the way that it works. I mean, I can't get my head around that behaviour from adults, from all of them. That is honestly shocking. Yet these are the people that will jump on board and call someone like you and I, we're trolls for the things that we say. But I would never say things like that about Archie and Lilibet.
The Sarandos invitation to the beef premiere that generated photographs Meghan subsequently tried to have deleted, the As Ever brand that is not selling out, the polo drama that is not being made, the speaking fees that have declined, the inheritance that is gone, all of it in the same week, creating the most comprehensive single picture of the Sussex commercial and social position that has been available at any one time. The source quoted in the Bashoff piece captures it with admirable economy. Unless someone is of use to them with money or unwavering attention, the Sussexes always fall out with them. They are worse at dealing with people than they are with business, and that's saying a lot. This is the operational verdict from inside their own world, from someone who knows the situation, who presumably cannot be accused of having an external axe to grind, and who has arrived at an assessment that is both precise and devastating. Worse at dealing with people than they are with business. The business results, the underperforming shows, the collapsed podcast deal, the canceled product lines, the polo drama stuck in development speak for themselves.
It's about security. So I didn't report it until I knew that the palace had announced it and that they were comfortable with the security arrangements. And I just think let's just contrast that to the way that Woke ITV have behaved. But this is very exciting, Tash. First foreign tour since 2025. When I broke the news on my Substack, I described it as the royal family's brightest star, signalling she is well and truly back. In terms of the details, Tash, this is going to be heading to Reggio Emilia in northern Italy on Wednesday and Thursday with the Royal Foundation Centre for Early Childhood. That is her passion project, of course. I would argue the visit is both significant and symbolic, given that she has not conducted any official overseas travel since October.
And if the assessment is that they are worse at dealing with people than they are at business, the social picture is even darker than the commercial one. Every bridge burned, no Met Gala invitation, security operative in the church while briefing no special arrangements, and a marriage with growing tension over whether children can be used as content. The ITV security disclosure hangs over all of this like a specific and immediate concern that dwarfs the social and commercial analysis. George is 12 years old. He is going to school. He does not have a bodyguard in the classroom with him. This information is now public, and whatever the motivation behind its disclosure, whether carelessness, misplaced point-making about the Sussex security case, or something more deliberate, the consequence is that a 12-year-old heir to the throne is now marginally less safe than he was before the podcast was recorded. That is the bottom line of this specific story, and it deserves to be stated clearly without the framing of Sussex politics or institutional commentary or commercial analysis. A child's security has been compromised by a disclosure that served no legitimate journalistic purpose and that the journalist responsible has not publicly apologized for.
Health and her family, and making sure, more importantly, that the children feel secure. They've gone through that move. You know, it's all a big fresh start for them. They're in their new home, new schools are coming around. And I think that also gives Catherine a lot of strength to know that her children are stable, her children are happy. And then you've got an idiot like Chris Shipp jumping up, potentially rocking the boat.
Exactly. I was going to say, oh yeah, they felt secure until the Sussex squad loser-in-chief, Chris Shipp, opened his big fat mouth. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
Tash, then
Move along.
Yeah, exactly. Then we head stateside where Harry and Meghan are facing new humiliation over their lack of an invite to the Met Gala. But we did see Prince Harry step out for lunch. This is how People magazine reported it.
Whatever one thinks about any aspect of the Sussex story, whatever sympathy or antipathy one has for Harry and Meghan, a 12-year-old boy's security should not be a casualty of the politics that swirl around. George is William's son. He is Charles's grandson. He is third in line to the throne. He is going to school like other children, trying to have a normal experience in circumstances that are inherently anything but normal. The disclosure of his security arrangements was a breach. It should be treated as a breach by ITV's management and by the broadcasting regulator. And the journalist responsible should understand, whatever his relationships and whatever his sympathies, that some information carries a specific and irreversible harm when it is made public. This week has produced an extraordinary range of developments, from the marriage tension reporting, to the Chicago bodyguard photographs, to the Boshoff alienation piece, to the ITV security disclosure. The thread that runs through all of them is the same one that has run through the entire Sussex story. The gap between what is presented and what is real, the managed narrative and the underlying truth.
Of Sussex was not. Her absence tells you everything you need to know about where the Duchess of Sussex finds herself right now. And in the time I spent in the USA talking to people close to them, people who know them, people who work in the worlds they so desperately want to penetrate, well, a clear picture emerges, and it is not a pretty one.
The People briefing about no special arrangements and the bald head of Dave Langham visible in the church, photographs behind Meghan. The machine keeps running. The content keeps being produced, and the gap between the content and the reality keeps being documented by the photographic evidence that the machine cannot control. Let me go deeper on several threads that deserve more careful examination than the immediate emotional reaction allows. The ITV Chris Shipp situation first, because the journalistic ethics question here is genuinely significant and needs to be addressed in terms that go beyond the immediate outrage. There is a principle in security journalism, one that most responsible outlets observe, that operational details about the protection of named individuals, particularly children and particularly public figures, under genuine threat, should not be disclosed without a compelling public interest justification. The public interest threshold for this kind of disclosure is very high. The question that should be asked before broadcasting security details about a 12-year-old heir to the throne is not just whether the information is interesting, but whether the harm of disclosure, the specific and potentially irreversible harm to a child's safety, is justified by the benefit of the public having that information. In this case, it is genuinely difficult to identify the public interest justification.
Single year. Do you know those stories when it comes to the Met Gala are literally rinse and repeat? I've seen it year after year after year, exactly the same way when it becomes close to the members of the royal family going to Sandringham or Balmoral. And it's, will Harry and Meghan get an invite? Or, you know, they're not getting an invite. And it's the same stuff over and over. They're not getting an invite to Balmoral and they're not getting an invite to the Met Gala. They are not wanted. And I do find it rather delicious, actually, that Meghan was very, very snobby towards the Kardashians when she married into the royal family, because Kim, I guess like a lot of people, once she learned that there were tickets being handed out to the royal wedding, because Meghan used the taxpayer-funded royal wedding as a networking event, she wanted in. But Meghan turned her nose up at the Kardashians because they were too lowbrow for her.
The information that George does not have a bodyguard sitting in the classroom with him does not serve a democratic accountability function. It does not reveal wrongdoing. It does not correct a significant public misunderstanding. It does not prevent harm to anyone. It provides specific operational detail about a specific security gap around a specific named individual who cannot protect himself. The only conceivable journalistic justification would be if the disclosure were part of a serious investigation into security failures, and that is clearly not what this was. This was a podcast discussion that wandered into territory it should not have entered. The relationship between Chris Shipp and the Sussex operation, the Ukraine trip, the broadly sympathetic ITV coverage of the security case, creates a specific context in which his willingness to disclose George's security details looks more deliberate than careless. Whether that context supports a deliberate interpretation is something that ITV's editorial management and Ofcom's regulatory function will need to consider. What is not in question is that the disclosure happened, that it was harmful, and that it was not justified by any recognizable public interest standard. The broader pattern of ITV's royal coverage reflects the access relationship with the Sussex communications machine that has shaped it. Shipp's Ukraine trip was enabled by Harry's team. The exclusive interviews, the sympathetic framing, the ongoing tendency to provide a platform for the Sussex position, all of it exists within a relationship of mutual benefit. ITV gets exclusive Sussex access. Harry and Meghan get a sympathetic mainstream media platform.
100%. Tash, what did you make of her trip to Chicago, which she briefed to People magazine? Oh, I turned up on my own and I was just in the pews with everyone else. I didn't need a special entrance. But there were these pictures, as Nancy Sidley pointed out. Damn, she's good at finding her lens. I mean, I think these pictures were set up, by the way, from within the church, and the idea was to get them out there. And but what I just can't understand, Tash, about this whole trip is it's like, yeah, of course, we've been saying forever you can just travel around America normally, Meghan. Like, no one cares. No, like...
The problem with this arrangement, as with all access journalism, is that it creates editorial pressures that can distort coverage in ways that ultimately serve the interests of the access provider rather than the public. The George security disclosure is the most dramatic possible example of where those distorted editorial pressures can lead. Whether Shipp was trying to make a point about the Sussex security case, whether he was simply careless in a relaxed podcast setting, or whether something more deliberate was involved, the effect is the same. ITV's royal editor has disclosed operational security details about a 12-year-old child's protection. Apparently without either ITV's editorial oversight catching the problem or Shipp himself recognizing that he had crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Now, let me address the Chicago bodyguard revelation more carefully, because the specific implications for Harry's legal case are significant and have been somewhat under-examined. The People briefing was precise. No special arrangements, arrived early, waited with other families in the pews. This language was presumably reviewed by the Sussex communications team before it was provided to People. It was not an off-the-cuff remark. It was a carefully chosen description of a specific situation designed to create a specific impression. And the specific impression it was designed to create a woman moving through public space without security infrastructure is directly relevant to the Sussex security case. If Meghan had no security at the Chicago church, the implication for Harry's legal argument is they can move around public spaces in high-crime American cities without professional protection. Therefore, the claim that they cannot safely visit Britain without state-funded security is questionable.
Princess Diana, and I had a few more people know about Catherine, Princess Kate, so they were very big on that. But there were people that the thing is, America is such a huge country, and outside of media reporting, I don't think anybody would recognise Meghan. I really don't. There's just something about her. I reckon that she could walk around with a baseball cap and no one would notice. And this is why they have to call the paparazzi. This is why whenever you see Meghan being packed somewhere with Harry, you just look at them. It even happened during COVID, which was more obvious, because they had masks on.
This is the point that the People briefing was arguably trying to preempt by establishing the narrative of normal, unprotected movement. But if Meghan had her security operative with her, if Dave Langham was in the church, as the photographs suggest, then the People briefing was false in its most significant particular. She did not arrive without special arrangements. She had professional security. And the briefing that she did not was a deliberate misrepresentation on the specific point most relevant to Harry's legal case. The legal implications of this specific misrepresentation are not immediately clear because the People briefing is not a court filing. But if the Sussex legal team is making arguments about security necessity that rest on a foundation of factual claims about how Harry and Meghan actually move through the world, and those factual claims are demonstrably false in specific instances that are documented photographically, the credibility of the broader factual claims becomes questionable. The Home Office's legal team will certainly be aware of the People story and of the subsequent bodyguard photographs. They will be evaluating what those photographs mean for the Sussex security case. And the evaluation based on what is visible in the available evidence is unlikely to be favorable to Harry's legal position. The godmother question adds one more layer of complexity to the Chicago trip story. Canon law regarding Catholic godparents requires that the godparent be a practicing Catholic.
Is taken where Meghan did quite rightly spot the camera, as she always does, and she had a bodyguard with her in the church, just to remind people that she's important. I mean, who takes a bodyguard in with her to the Holy Communion? You can see Dave's head just behind hers, that bald, shiny head. You can spot him from a mile off.
I see. And then if you've taken a bodyguard, then why the hell are you briefing? Oh, we had no special arrangements. I was just completely on my own with everyone. Oh,
Clearly
it's
you
just...
did.
The question of what religion Meghan currently practices is genuinely uncertain. She has been associated with multiple religious traditions at different points in her life. And the Episcopal confirmation before her marriage to Harry was the most recent documented formal religious affiliation before any subsequent changes. Whether she is formally converted to Catholicism, whether the family in question sought a formal exception from the church, whether the designation of godmother is understood in a more social than religious sense, none of these questions can be answered from the outside. What can be said is that the People briefing presented the Chicago trip as a straightforward matter of a godmother attending her godson's first communion, implying a warmly established, long-standing relationship of religious and personal significance. The subsequent questions about whether Meghan could formally be a Catholic godmother, combined with the apparent lack of any public documentation of this friendship before the People story, create a picture that is somewhat less straightforward than the briefing suggested. This is consistent with the pattern across all Sussex communications. The briefed version is maximally positive and specific in ways that resist scrutiny. The actual version, when scrutinized, is more complicated. The Met Gala absence, confirmed to have preceded Meghan's already being back in Montecito, is the social version of the security legal case. The absence from the gala from Wintour's event, which operates as the clearest possible signal of who is and who is not considered worth, including in the fashion world's most significant gathering, is the definitive statement about where Meghan stands in that specific world. Not invited, not on the list, not considered a sufficiently significant or welcome presence to merit inclusion. This matters commercially because the Met Gala is, among its many other functions, a platform for brand association.
The brands that dress, the attendees, the coverage the event generates, the associations that a prominent presence at the gala creates, all of this has direct commercial value for lifestyle and fashion operations. Being absent from the gala while it is attended by people across the cultural spectrum, including people who are less prominent in fashion terms than Meghan claims to be, is a specific and documented commercial disadvantage. The Lauren Sanchez angle makes the Met Gala absence particularly pointed. Sanchez, who Meghan apparently snubbed because she considered her trashy, attended the gala. Multiple of Meghan's former associates attended the gala. Kim Kardashian has attended the gala in previous years. The social world that Meghan has been trying to access, the world she moved to California to inhabit, the world that the Sussex lifestyle brand is supposed to be addressing, that world was at the gala without her. And the person whose invitation was in Wintour's hands, whose judgment determines who is and is not on the list, has made her assessment of Meghan very clear through the consistent absence of that invitation.